Hey guys, I am just since I know that you guys will probably have a lot of free time maybe in the summer, but I know that like going forward you're gonna, when you're done with this class or even while you're sheltered at home, you're going to want to try some different mediums for painting, and I'm basically just going to kind of experiment with some of the stuff that I have here while I'm at home. And the first one is water soluble oil paint. Now the basic difference between that, I know that we've been doing a lot of acrylics. This is this is an experiment, and if it doesn't work well, then I just won't post it. But water soluble oil paint is exactly what it sounds like. It's just oil paints that you can clean up with water. My understanding is that you're supposed to not use water as a medium while you're painting, but to only use water for cleanup. I've watched a bunch of videos about it, and so we're gonna find out about it right now. I have to tell you that this is literally the first time I got my water soluble oils in the mail here, and I just got a few colors to try them out, and I'm literally just getting them out of the package today right now. So I've got 4 colors: titanium white, ivory black, yellow ochre, and cadmium red, and that's what's called a Zorn palette. And it's good for doing flesh tones. And what I'm going to do is, I have this piece of acrylic paper here, wash background with acrylic. You can do that. You can put acrylic underneath oils, but you can't do it the other way around, so I'm told. And like I said, I'm going to try this out. I have already painted, let's see if I painted this guy. This is an acrylic painting, and my aim right now is to paint the same portrait from the same image of the same guy with these water soluble oil paints. So I'm going to start with that right now, and I have, and the point of this as opposed to just using oil paints is that it's safer. I'm in my room here, I'm in my living space, so oil paints and the solvents that you use for them are toxic, and you don't want to live around those. But the water soluble oils are less toxic, and I also have this water mixable linseed oil, and that's what I'm going to use as my medium to thin the paint as I'm painting, and then I should be able to clean it with water. That's all theoretical. That's what I've seen in videos and learned from reading up on it a little bit, and we're just going to dive in. And I've also got some other brushes here, and my understanding is that you shouldn't use the same brushes for these oil paints that you do for your acrylics. So I just got a small little sampling of the stuff that you would use for water soluble oils, and I'm just going to try it out. I've got a big brush and a little brush, and I'm gonna just use a regular old piece of palette paper and see if I can get going with that. So I've got this guy basically blocked in here. With just sort of basic lines and with a dark color, and I'm washing my brush out with water, but I'm thinning my paint with this linseed oil medium when I'm painting. So hopefully I'm finding that I really have to use a lot of the medium so far to get a good flow. I'm going to now try to, there's a lot of different shades of flesh color, so I'm going to start trying to get my basic flesh color together. So you'll have three sort of color zones for the face, and this is obviously regardless of medium. You sort of generally, most people are going to be more yellowish in the forehead, more reddish in the cheeks area, and then more bluish or grayish in the jaw. And obviously this will be different in different ethnicities, and different, it'll be more pronounced in men and less in women. It'll be more pronounced in older people as opposed to younger people. Obviously facial hair and we'll change that, but that's the basic thing. So I'm just going to get a few basic flesh colors mixed up with that in mind. So the first thing I noticed with this stuff is that it doesn't dry, so it gets all over everything. So what I did is I got used to wiping my palette knife off on a rag that I just keep in my hands, and with acrylics it just dries. But with this stuff it stays wet, so I now have it got it all over me without even trying. And even if I try to fix this little thing, you see I got a little bit of my flesh color on the painting right there. So it looks like probably it's going to be an adjustment for me to keep this from getting all over myself. I do have some of the different zones of color mixed up. Here, something that is a good thing to do, especially at the start of your painting, is they use a bigger brush than what you think. You're not supposed to use the same brushes for your acrylics as your oils, so I'm just going to start out using these two brushes. I have two that I have used especially for this. Let's see what happens. And I'm just going to try dipping my brush in a little bit of the linseed oil here before I start just blocking in the head here. And already what I notice is I might have used too much medium, and I might have used too much red. Tone that down with a little black. Ugh. I'm just going to kind of block in some of these features here so I don't lose them. And I'm washing my brush with water now. And I've noticed that this has a much different feel from acrylic paint. I'm going to try just using water for my medium, but I'm going to get some of my more redder color down here for the cheek area and eyes. And I noticed that using water as a medium, the feel of it is a little bit more what I'm used to with the acrylic paint. But I don't know what the end product of that will be. It might crack or beat up or get gummy or something. And then let's do this little grayer color for my sort of mouth area. Using sort of water more as my medium, and it does thin it out, I notice. It doesn't like bead up or get weird, so that's what you want as opposed to, but it might dry faster and it might crack if I use water too much. So I'm just being really loose with it, trying to paint kind of what I see and kind of trying to keep the structure together. So yeah, you can see that my colors are really extreme right now and not really what I'm going to want for the end thing, but it's kind of interesting the way I feel like I'm having a little bit of an easier time keeping the structure together in a very loose way, whereas with the acrylics you really sort of have to be meticulous. But here, I mean, I am using a very thick, well, pretty thick brush for this, and I'm washing it out in water. It's really hard to get all of the color out of there with water. I wonder if I can use some of my oil to get that a little cleaner. Let's see, let's go a little bit further with this gray down here. But it's kind of interesting to play around with this because you can really change something immediately, whereas with the acrylics it's kind of a whole thing. I'm painting extremely dirty right now, which means I'm just using my brush to blend the paint and not worrying about keeping my palette disciplined together at all. So far I've got sort of a color block-in going of this. I'm really just kind of trying to be loose and experimenting. What I'm finding so far is that it's a totally different feel of the brush and a totally different, the mixing of colors is totally different, and I think that the finished product might be interesting on this. So I have my finished painting here. I think it came out reasonably well. As far as the difference with acrylics, I would say, well, let's see, I've got my acrylic version right here. I'll just put it right next to it. In my opinion, the oil one is much better than the acrylic one. That might be just because I had a practice run once, and I did this first and this one second. But as you can see, probably the colors are more vibrant on this one. The blending is better. I was able to do wet on wet blending through most of the thing. I did end up finishing this over multiple days, and I found that even though regular oil paints will stay wet for a really long time, that these pretty much dried overnight by the next day. But I was able to do wet on wet blending on this throughout a single session, and it was a little bit tacky the next day, but not really wet. I found that one thing about this is that when I try to do little tiny detail like around the eyes, the paint stays wet, so it like separates. So it kind of was a little bit more difficult with the oils to do small detail, but to do blending like this, you can see around the mouth and everything is definitely way better on the oils. Like I said before, this differs from regular oils in that you can use it in your living space. I was able to thin it with linseed oil and water. I found that thinning it with water didn't cause it to separate as some water soluble oils. It probably depends on the kind that you buy. I bought this, let's see if I can show you, this Winsor Newton Artisan, which is really good. There are several brands that are supposed to be better than others, so it probably matters which kind of paint that you buy. But all in all, it was a really, really interesting experiment. I'll probably end up doing some more with these, and hopefully, if that's something that you are interested in doing, something to think about if you're stuck inside for a while, to try the water soluble oils. Again, this is not a commercial, it's just having used it to do this one painting, I think it's interesting, and I'm going to keep trying with it. So that's all for now. Have a good night, wash your hands, be safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.